Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today is the author of the Liz Adams Mystery Series. In addition to mysteries, she writes children's stories, short stories, and poetry. Her mission? To deliver a delightful story to readers of all ages while benefiting a larger community. She donates a portion of the proceeds from selling her books to causes that support wildlife conservation and the homeless, both people and pets. She's passionate about her faith, family, the beach, art, and reading books. She and her husband live in Houston, Texas, with a totally spoiled Labrador Retriever, Eve. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Stacy Wilder.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share my writer's journey with your listeners.
We're excited to have you. And Stacy, our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write that first book?
Oh gosh, that first book took me 15 years to write. I have a day job, so I was writing it in my spare time, and I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in my writing because I didn't have a master's in English and I was used as part of my day job, I'm used to being credentialed. So I have former CPA and human resources. So it was challenging for me to get over, that I didn't have that master's, that I didn't have a long writing resume, and I had to start someplace. So as a big birthday approached, past 50, 60, I started to get serious about the writing process and decided that it was time to either pursue it or shelf it.
That happens to a lot of us. Your book locations are wonderful, Carmel and Charleston. Do you have connections in those places?
I've visited both places. Charleston is one of my favorite places in the world. I just find it very charming, very much a Southern town. And the main character, Liz Adams, is very Southern as well. And Carmel by the Sea, I actually visited for research for the first time last summer. And kind of a fun story about that. It was my 60th birthday and also a big wedding anniversary. And my husband surprised me with a renewal of our vows in Carmel by the Sea. So.
Well, that was a wonderful ceremony and a wonderful location for you to set another novel.
It's also a very charming place, a very dog-friendly place. You have Labradors, and I have a Labrador, and the main Liz Adams sidekick is a Labrador Retriever named Duke, who can detect when people are telling the truth. So he comes in handy when she's on a case.
That's a great trait to have. Well, I spent a lot of time in Charleston because I had an aunt who lived there and operated a a B&B in one of those beautiful historic homes. So when she would need a little time out of the fishbowl, I would go and keep it for her to be able to travel a little bit. So Charleston is a wonderful city.
It is. And those B&Bs are in Charleston are so charming. That had to be a real learning experience for you, like taking care of the B&B.
Well, I got to meet people from all over the world. They come to Charleston, for the history and the beauty there, and I was just so delighted every morning at breakfast to meet all the guests.
And the third book, which is coming out in November, it's a novella, A Christmas Conundrum, is set back in Charleston.
Nice. They really dress up for Christmas there.
Yes.
Well, once you wrote your first book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to choose a hybrid, a small press, or did you self publish?
So as I approached 60, I set myself a couple of writing goals. One of them was to enter contests. And I entered a contest. I entered two contests, but one of them was in Vermont and competed against four other authors. And at the end of it, if you won, you got a traditional publishing contract. And they judged you in multiple areas, including your marketing plan, an author reading, uh, manuscript, the cover, and the author behind the book. So I lost by 1.5 points, which was totally a blessing in disguise. I had an opportunity to do a hybrid publishing deal, but I decided to go on my own and self-publish, primarily because I have some people in my life that I wanted to get the book out there for. My parents are still alive. We have an older friend, and I had promised him the first signed copy. And so with self-publishing, you have control over your release date, um, and those types of details, which was important to me.
Well, we have so many options these days, and self publishing has certainly become one of the strongest ones. And you have control over everything. You can choose your own cover, you can choose your own editor, you have total control over your funds. So that's totally unlike the traditional route.
One of the things I love is the collaboration process too, working with the editor and working with the cover designer. I have a formatter that I use, so I really enjoy that collaboration. And being a Texan, you may be familiar with Lone Star Literary, but that's who I use and love the Texas connection.
Yeah, she does a wonderful job with that publication and really touts all Texas writers and anything Texas related. What do you think is the most challenging part of your artistic process?
Oh, that's a hard question. Um, Initially, I would have said editing because my first round of editing with Charleston was challenging. But now I've grown to really love the process and to see, how the story takes shape. And it's so much fun, that moment when I'm actually in the story with the characters. I'm seeing what they see. I'm hearing what they hear. I'm feeling what they feel. Um, and that usually happens for me during the editing process. The other part that I found challenging is plotting recently, because I've been all over the map with each book. The first book, Charleston, I was a pantser. I just plotted by the seat of my pants. And the second book, Carmel, I was much more deliberate, and I did make it much easier, and I plotted it out in more detail. Christmas, more seat of the pants, and I'm currently working on Cayman, Cayman Conundrum, and that one's been seat of the pants.
Well, are you going to take a trip there to do your research?
I sure hope so. I'm planning on it. My passport's renewed.
Well, that would be a great way to name your books and write your stories, is to find locations you want to travel to and to visit those and to write it off as a business expense.
Yes. And that's one thing that I wanted to give the reader too, is the ability to travel someplace from the comfort of their armchair. So really trying to give a sense of the city, the food, the sights, the tourist attractions, the people, and the ambiance.
And I do think editing is difficult for most of us, especially in our first books, because we think when that first draft is done, we're finished. And, writing is rewriting, and that revising process does become very familiar to us, and it tightens up our stories and makes them just so much richer when we can take out all the fluff.
I tend to write pretty lean, so I tend to add things rather than delete. Um, I'm usually heavy on dialogue when I start, and then I go back and, add more details and more emotion and um, more setting.
Well, what is your writing routine? Are you a morning person or a night person? How do you get all of your words in for the day? Do you write every day?
I don't write every day. I would love to, but I do have a day job. So usually I write on weekends. Sometimes I'll write some in the morning, as marketing is a challenge. So I often will spend some time on marketing and social media in the mornings before I start my day job. But typically on weekends.
Well, let's talk more about marketing, because we writers like to write. We don't like to promote ourselves usually. And even those of us who have been in public relations and marketing in our real careers before our next step careers, um, we find it difficult to promote ourselves. But even the big five are requiring their authors to do most of their publicity themselves. So, have you found anything that's worked for you, or maybe something you've tried that didn't work?
I've enjoyed blog tours. That's been an easy way for me to get the word out and without requiring a lot of time on my part. And it's been fun to, a lot of times there's a giveaway associated with the tour. So it's been fun to mail the book to the winner. Um, Book clubs have been very good for me. So, and I love interacting with readers and other authors. That's a ton of fun, uh, and gives me a lot of joy. So, book clubs have been great. Um, Social media, I've used Facebook and Instagram. I haven't gotten into the TikTok world or the Twitter world. Those two are pretty easy for me to use. Um, I can go down a rabbit hole with Canva. Canva is a tool that you can use to create Facebook posts and Instagram posts and flyers and brochures, and it's a lot of fun. Uh, I have not run an Amazon ad yet. I have run some Facebook ads and some Fussy Librarian ads. That's been a good avenue. So, yeah, it's been kind of like hunting and pecking and seeing what works and what doesn't work. There's so many options out there.
Yes, it can be pretty mind boggling, but I think with your locations, you should be able to tap into those locations for book clubs or to get articles in newspapers for Charleston and Carmel, places like that, like to carry books that where their location, where their city is basically one of the characters in your books.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm hoping soon I'm going to have an article in Carmel Pinecone, which is their little local newspaper.
I bet you'll see a lot of return there. Are there any specific books or seminars or writing retreats or groups that you can share that improved your writing journey?
Yes. So the very first contest I entered, one of my goals that I set, other than entering contests, was to join a writers group. And so I joined what's now called League of Romance Writers, and they have a contest. In fact, it's going on right now. The deadline is October 2nd for entries. And they give you fantastic feedback. The group has a lot of published authors. The contest is called the Emily. And so I entered Charleston, part of Charleston, and Emily several years ago. And I received great feedback, including originally I wrote the book in present tense. And I was told by a mentor, no, past tense. And then I was told that if I was going to have a dog in the book, the dog needed to have a job. So thus Duke's job. And Duke is modeled a little bit after our Labrador Retriever, Eve. She can't detect when people are lying, but she's a communicator. She howls the words, I love you, for her breakfast. So she's a sweetheart. But anyway, so I entered that contest and they actually helped me figure out my genre. So the section that I entered was romantic suspense. And they were like, there's not enough romance in this for it to be romantic suspense. We think you've got more of a cozy mystery going on. So that was extremely helpful. I also took one of my other goals was to take craft classes. So take online classes. And I took a bunch of classes via masterclass, and also some things through the League of Romance Writers and some other webinars. But I found masterclass a very easy place for me to start. The classes were very well done. They have, Dan Brown teaches. They have a bunch of really great talent teach the classes.
Nice. And in Texas, we also have the Writers League of Texas, and they do online classes as well.
I haven't joined that one yet. I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the passage that you've brought to share today and then read from your book so we can hear your tone and voice?
So I brought a passage from Charleston Conundrum, the first book in the Liz Adams mystery series. And it's actually when I started writing this story 15 years ago, there's a prologue, but I'm going to start with the first chapter and read just a little bit of that. And the very first line of the first chapter came to me one morning. I'm an avid journaler, so I journal every morning. And anyway, this first line came to me one morning while I was journaling. Duke's baritone bark rang in my ears. Sirens screeched. I jerked upright. The neon lights on my bedside clock pulsed 4:52. Heart hammering, I emerged from the warm cocoon of blankets atop my four-poster bed. The jolt of cold tile on my feet lifted a portion of the fog created by last night's third glass of wine. What's the matter, boy? Red lights beaconed through the front bay windows. My sixth sense kicked in. and the hairs on my arm responded. I grabbed Duke's leather collar and edged past his 90-pound muscle body to peer through the beveled glass of my front door. My stomach dropped. Cars swarmed my neighbor's house. My neighbor Peg and I had become fast friends shortly after I moved here. Just 6 hours ago, we polished off her stash of Merlot, good stuff, but she bought at a charity auction for 3 times the normal price. I couldn't imagine why every emergency crew in Charleston was parked in front of her home. I ran my fingers through my hair in disbelief. What the hell is going on? After slipping into my robe, I left Duke inside and marched toward the red lights and swarm of emergency personnel. Each step felt heavy and leaden. My gut clenched tighter and tighter, and I wiped beads of perspiration off the back of my neck. The yellow tape stretched across the sidewalk leading to her front door screamed crime scene. Street lamps glowed in the morning mist, and the combination of pulsing red and orange lights gave off an eerie glow. Neighbors trickled from their homes and formed a small crowd.
That was great. You have us right in the scene and ready to hear what happened.
So in the book, her best friend gets murdered, and she ends up being one of the main suspects. So there's a lot of tension between Liz and the cops, and there's a trip to Paris thrown in there. So it was a lot of fun to write, and that's one thing too that gives me a lot of joy is writing the stories. It's use a lot of my analytical brain in my day job, and it's fun when you use some of the analytical brain in the editing process, but it's fun to employ my imagination when I write.
Is mystery your favorite genre to read?
I do love to read mysteries. I was told during the contest by one of the publishers that was the judge, the one that I went to in Vermont, that he suggested that I read outside of my genre because that would give me creative ideas that I might not otherwise think of. And that was good advice. I've gotten to know other authors since, well, the ones that I participated in with in Vermont, we became fast friends and we've kept in touch, and they write in all different types of genres. And I've gotten to know other authors through just through the process, and the author community I found has been so supportive. And so I also read authors that I know their books.
Well, was it difficult for you in writing these mysteries to leave those breadcrumbs throughout the novel? Did you have to go back and add some things, or did you have the plot and the progression already in your mind when you began?
But I've gone back and added things. And so a little of both. It's definitely a little of both. So, yeah, in fact, with Cayman, I totally changed who I originally thought the murderer was going to be because I decided it was too obvious.
I do love a mystery and I love thrillers. So I think my third book might be one of those.
Yeah, I'm anxious to read your books. They are on my to be read list.
Thank you. What does writing success look like to you personally?
Oh, I'd love to, you know, for it to be my career. That would be fun. Um, it would be wonderful to have a bestseller, but that would be fun. And I do donate a portion of proceeds from the book to causes that help homeless people and homeless pets. For Charleston, it was NAMI, National Alliance of the Mentally Ill. And for Carmel, I focus more on homeless pets. So Texas Sporting Breed Rescue was where we adopted Eve. So I've donated to them. I have a friend that runs a Schnauzer rescue in Texas, so donated to them. So that also would be, if I was able to make sizable donations, that would, right now it's just little checks, but that would be success to me. And of course, we'd all love to have our books turned into a movie or TV show.
Well, just when mine were being shopped around Hollywood, the writers went on strike, which I support the writers always, but it may be the first of the year before scripts can be shopped around again with the actors and the writers out on strike. Does your family support your career as a writer?
Yes, my husband's super supportive. My parents are both big readers, so they were delighted when I released that first book. Yes, I have a very supportive family.
You chose to write under a pseudonym. I'm always interested in what inspires writers. Are they separating their main career from this one? What was the reason that you decided to write under a pseudonym?
I hope one day to publish some children's books. I have a series that I've started about a Labrador retriever that goes on adventures. And my last name is not really conducive to a children's book author. So my maiden name is Hendricks, but there is a Stacy Hendricks who's an author. And I just one more day came up with Stacy Wilder and it stuck.
Yeah, that's a great name. Stacy, as always, our last interview question is, our writers over 50 are quite a unique set. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
I would even say for writers younger than 50, go ahead and do it. Start. Don't let the voices in your head stop you. Get involved with other writing communities, author communities. The author community is extremely supportive, and it's, I haven't found it to be competitive. Everybody wants everybody to succeed. And they realize how difficult it is to write a book, and you need those coaches and those cheerleaders along the way. So definitely get involved in a writer's community. Set yourself some goals, whatever they may be, but make them achievable. Mine were to join a writer's group, enter a contest, and take some classes. So, and keep plugging away. As I mentioned, I am an avid journaler. I journal every morning. I developed that practice when I was in a group that worked through Julia Cameron's Artist's Way book. And that's the times when I didn't have a clue what I was going to write, I was still writing in my journal, and that helped build that writing muscle.
I think that's so important. And I have heard from so many authors who took those journals that they were writing in every day and turned it into their memoir. So you might have a memoir in you after you write all of these journals.
We'll see. Could be.
Well, thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing your beautiful books and all of those to come. And we're happy to say that you're now one of our authors over 50.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend, and check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's DAILY, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing, and remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.